Hello everyone. This is John Jenkins again, and I wanted to bring you my first math video. Uh, I've never done a math video before, and this came about. First of all, I wanted to do my first book haul as well. Uh, it's a library book haul. I got two books on physics. The first book is the Story of Physics by Lloyd Motz and Jefferson Hayne Weaver. As you can see, it's got Einstein's picture with a special graphic right there. Uh, and the second book is just called Einstein by Walter Isaacson. I know the title is backwards because of the camera, but there's the picture of him, and I've been interested in math for a while. I bought a book a few years ago, Physics for Engineering, and I did a little bit of reading from that, but I never finished it. So now that I'm at the point in my life where I can actually finish a book from start to finish, I'm going to be able to read more of that. I'm going to be able to finish these these two books, probably by the end of the year. But uh, but that brings me to my first math video. I discovered the TED Ed channel, which is basically they took TED Talks or TEDx Talks, and they condensed it into these little, I guess you would call it like a missile. You know, in church sometimes they give you the missile, which is like, the cliff notes of the Bible. Well, this is sort of like the cliff notes of a TEDx talk. And they have, the first one I watched was the 8 steps to become a successful person. Uh, and I watched I watched the he he broke down the 8 steps into other videos, and I watched the one about hard work about like 5 times. But that's not what this is about. I actually watched paradoxes because I was into paradoxes and fallacies and things like that. I have 5 fallacies that I discovered that I made videos about them on my channel, and basically this was a paradox video, and uh, the name of the paradox was the infinite hotel. Basically, the idea is if you have an infinite hotel, which is a hotel with an infinite number of rooms, and that hotel has an infinite number of uh, uh, tenants. There's a tenant in every room, and there's an infinite number of rooms. Both are infinite, right? And uh, then you have uh, uh, a tour bus drives up. A tour bus drives up, and there are about 50 people on the bus, and they all want a room at the Infinite Hotel. How would you accommodate those 50 people? And basically, what they said was, you go, every other room, you take the person out of that room and send them to the end. And then if you do that 50 times, go in every other room, by the time you get to 100 rooms, you'll have enough room for those 50 people. And they modified the problem, and they did they did it like, oh, uh, uh, what if you had the infinite hotel with the infinite tenants, and then an infinite tour bus showed up with infinite riders on it, and all the infinite riders wanted to have a room at the infinite hotel. Um, and they solved this one by using a mathematical uh, axiom or theorem that states that the number of prime numbers is infinite. So uh, they would say you know every prime number, you remove that person from the room, and then you send it to the end, and then you'll have an infinite number of free rooms for the new tenants. And I actually, thinking about that for a while, I stumbled upon the they basically said that this only works in a countable infinity. And they said that the reason why this problem can be solved is because it deals with a countable infinity. And that was really the thing that tipped me off. That was really the thing that tipped me off. That there was something wrong here. And I made a comment, and I said, well, you know, the concept of a countable infinity is an oxymoron. The only way you can count something is if you know it comes to an end at a certain point. You know, chances are it will not. I mean, I've never counted anything in my life that went up to a Google, or 1 times 10 to the 100. So it's gonna be less than a Google, almost guaranteed. But uh, uh, I mean, I've never counted anything that went up to a quadrillion, which is one step above a trillion. So basically, uh, uh, unless it comes to an end, then it cannot be counted. You can't. It's like it's like you can't eat something that doesn't fit in your mouth. Either you have to bite off a piece at a time, or you have to cut off a piece, or crush it or whatever. But if it's like you can't eat a mountain except one bite at a time. And you couldn't eat the whole mountain in your lifetime. Basically, the that sort of thinking led me to this sort of revelation that I had, that accountable infinity doesn't exist. And I really started to see that this video was circular logic. It's like uh, you have infinity rooms with infinity tenants, and you say, oh, it doesn't matter. We can fit more because we have infinity rooms. But that's circular logic. You're saying infinity can accommodate any any type of construct just because it's infinity, and your reasoning is that it's infinity. Uh, and I was like, that's circular logic. They're using sort of this fancy sort of it's sort of this sort of Starbucks intellectualism, the type of thing that you would say to somebody sitting next to you in Starbucks, while you're drinking your vanilla latte, which is my personal favorite. But anyway, you know, it doesn't elevate above that. It's just It's just Starbucks philosophy. It's not. It does. It has no basis in sound mathematics, and that led to uh, that led to basically what I said that they're trying to transfer something that could never exist, which is an infinite hotel with infinite passage, infinite tenants, and they're trying to uh, 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 create something that, while sounding smart and sounding sophisticated, is flawed because it's based off of uh, uh, something that could never exist. And I forgot the actual name of the fallacy, but it's when you try to base something, you make a premise about something that's not true or not feasible, and then you try to build a solid argument off of a foundation that is flawed. I think that's the base definition of a fallacy. I think that's the base definition of a fallacy. So basically, I got into this extremely lengthy conversation on YouTube that's still going on right now. And this guy, I should have written down his uh, uh, his YouTube name, but I guess it's better to keep his identity private because he didn't give me permission to make this video. But basically, I got this long conversation, and he said he tried to, basically he thought that I was sort of like just this uneducated person who didn't know anything about math or and I was always great at math in school. I didn't do the homework, but I passed all tests because I understood the material. And uh, I took college math, scored high in that. But he's like he tried to brush me off with some rudimentary stuff. He said, "Oh, you." Basically, to paraphrase, he said, "Oh, you just don't understand." He didn't mean he was talking about accountable infinity, which is basically he said his argument was that he's talking about natural numbers. I didn't know what natural numbers was, but I looked it up. So he says, he's talking about natural numbers, so it's a sound problem because he's talking about natural numbers. And basically, he then says that he meant, when he said infinity, he meant a listable infinity, as in, a listable. He wasn't talking about theoretical infinity. He was talking about a listable infinity, or practical infinity, or infinity that you can use to solve problems. And I saw outside the box on that, and I was like, basically, first thing I did is I went to Google. I looked up the definition of infinity of natural numbers, and and to my surprise, the definition fit perfectly within my argument. Basically, the definition of a natural number is a number that occurs obviously or commonly in nature. And if you look at that definition, that explains exactly what the problem is with infinity and why it came up in the first place. And I'll get into that later. But you know, basically, I said, a natural number is something that occurs obviously and commonly in nature. Like you go to the park, you see about 100, or you go to the park and you see like 100 three-leaf clovers and one four-leaf clover, right? So those are the numbers that come up regularly in nature. You know that a pride of lion. If you live in Africa, you know that a pride of lions has maybe 13 total lions. Uh, 5 women, 1 man, and the rest children. you know, uh, those are natural numbers that occur obviously in nature that you can count. You cannot count -1 lions or -1 oceans, or you can't count, point 0.5 oceans. I guess you would just call that a lake or a gulf or a sound or whatever, uh, you know. But uh, 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 you know, a number that occurs uh, obviously and commonly in nature. But the question becomes, in what part of nature does infinity occur? And you gotta think. I didn't even understand what I was saying at the time. But as I started to say this, it became obvious. I mean, uh, 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 and then I went to his next point, which is, he he said, the guy who was arguing with me said that that the maker of the TED Ed video was talking about listable infinity, which means that just the infinity that you can list, the practical infinity, the problem solving infinity that they gave to us in school when we were doing math. I think I did a day of learning about infinity, and they told us a bunch of stuff, and that stuff was all wrong. And I told him, basically, uh, there is there is no such thing as a listable infinity. And you basically, I reiterated my other point. Basically, there are no. I gave a practical example. Basically, in order to list something, you need uh, paper or some sort of computer. That's the only real way to do it on a economies of scale level. But there are not enough trees on every planet in every solar system in every galaxy to produce enough paper for you to list infinity numbers. If you were to harvest every conceivable planet, unlimited light years away, you know, unlimited distance outside of inside and outside of our galaxy, and every galaxy and every universe, you know, you would not find enough. You would not have enough trees to produce enough paper to list out infinity. If you could, it wouldn't be infinity. And then I use another example. If you say, okay, writing on paper is wasteful, it's slow, it's inefficient, use a computer, a fast computer. Well, if you would use a computer, let's say that you were to harvest the resources of every planet in every galaxy in every solar system, and you would use all those resources to build nothing but computers, and then you were to use all those computers in unison to list out infinity numbers, right? You would not, even if you harvested every planet to build nothing but computers, and you put a text file on every computer, and you used every computer in unison to list out a sequence of numbers, you would not be able to list infinite numbers, no matter how many planets you harvested to make those computers, even if each computer had a 6 terabyte hard drive. And uh, basically, I came to the conclusion that none of us has ever experienced infinity. None of us understands infinity. It doesn't occur in nature. No one has ever seen infinity or experienced infinity or uh, really studied infinity. And it's just an illusion. It's a part of it's economic. Part of it is intellectual laziness. We're just too lazy to actually come up with a real number, so we just stick infinity in there so that we can get an easy answer. But really, it came from the fact that we have very short lives and very short memories. Basically, we only live uh, in the United States. We only live around 80 years, or less than 80 years, and just the Earth is like 14 billion years old, or 4 billion years old. The Earth is 4 billion years old. So 80 years is nothing. Our lives are so short, and uh, uh, our memories are so short. Basically, if somebody is born before science came along, if somebody was born in a certain year, and 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 it something existed when he was born, something, since before he could remember, a certain thing existed. It could have been a building or whatever, or a government or whatever, and then that same thing exists when he dies. To him, that's infinity because it's such a long time. He doesn't understand that, so many things have I mean, even if it had, even if his grandfather, great grandfather told him stories about how that thing existed when he was born, he still gets the same mistaken identity, uh, mistaken impression that this is infinity, when it's when in the context of history, it's nothing. And also, we have very short memories. You know, uh, Basically, you know, there were things that I grew up with as a kid, that there were things that happened when I was a kid that started after I started my life. But to me, they've always been there because that I don't remember when I had to do without, basically. And for example, in Chicago, when I started school, uh, you know, you had to go to the school that was in your district, which means that if you lived in the projects like me, you had to go to a failing school, and not only that, you had to pay taxes to that school, to run that school. You had to pay taxes to run a failing school, uh, that wasn't helping anybody, and on top of that, you had to send your kids there. And I'll tell that story later. But that changed. Early on in my grade school years, and then we went to the school busing era. Uh, uh, but so my short memory, I don't remember when I had to do with that, when I had to go to that failing school. Ulysses S. Grant on the, I believe, the west side in Rockwell Gardens. I forget that, and I think I always had it this good. I always had the opportunity to go to a good school, higher performing school. So you know, because of my human frailty and my lack of memory, uh, which is particularly bad for me because I really can't remember stuff. Uh, you know, it, it 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 creates the illusion that it's always been this way. It's been like infinity, and that's you can think about that in your life. So I'll bring, this is gonna take a lot longer than I thought, so I'm gonna have to make multiple parts. But let me know what you think. Does infinity exist? Am I wrong? I could be wrong. You know, but let me know what you think about this video, and have a nice day. Bye.